Jamie Dimon just dropped a bombshell. He warns that America's economy is hurtling towards collapse under our very noses. Now, this isn't coming from some fringe blogger, it's from the CEO of JPMorgan Chase, the largest bank in the country. He says the biggest threat isn't China or any foreign power, it's us, the enemy within. So imagine that. The real danger to the US economy is our own mismanagement, and Diamond thinks it's reaching a breaking point. Now, here's the kicker: you probably see the warning signs already: trillions in debt, infighting in Washington, wild swings in the bond market. We all sense that something's off a little, right? So ask yourself, is America inching towards a financial cliff that everyone seems to ignore? And you know the answer. And Diamond is sounding the alarm in the strongest possible terms. So, welcome to the Financial Freedom Network, the financial channel that fills your wallet, makes you money, and boosts your credit. Before we take a deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe to get notified when we produce another game changing video that affects you personally. And I promise you'll appreciate it. So buckle up and let's plunge straight in. So, Jamie Dimon isn't mincing words about why we're on the brink. According to him, the amount of mismanagement is extraordinary at every level of government: state, city, federal, and it's setting us up for a disaster. Now, he points out failures in everything from cumbersome permitting and overregulation to broken immigration policies, failing inner city schools, and a costly healthcare system. In Diamond's view, these self inflicted wounds are going to kill us if we don't do something. He even calls this dysfunction the enemy within. So while politicians bicker, our national house is on fire. And Diamond agreed with Warren Buffett's idea that America is usually resilient to normalcy. But he warns that this time it's different and that we need to get our act together fast. The message is clear: America's worst economic enemy might be America itself. Fix the fundamentals like streamline permits, reform taxes, and improve schools, and we could easily be growing at 3% a year. Diamond says, but if we stay on our current path of complacency and chaos, we're heading for trouble. It's a sobering thought when a Wall Street titan basically says, Washington, get your house in order before it collapses on us all. So Diamond is ringing alarm bells about America's exploding national debt. The US federal deficit hit about 2 trillion in 2024, roughly 7% of our entire economy. Now think about that. We're spending far beyond our means year after year. And Diamond warns that if a recession hits, that deficit could blow out to 10% of GDP. That's an absolutely staggering gap. We're essentially piling on debt like there's no tomorrow. In fact, on our current trajectory, the US debt is projected to soar so much that our debt to GDP now is one of Europe's most indebted countries. So that's not exactly a comforting comparison. Diamond questions how long the world will keep faith a debt time bomb. More debt means higher interest room to maneuver when a crisis hits. If we don't change course by reining in spending or grow the economy fast, implosion. Now remember, banker, he's seen what unsustainable debt does to countries. He says we must change the trajectory of the debt. According to Reuters, it's wise to listen. America's credit isn't a blank check, and even Diamond fears our borrowing binge could backfire spectacularly. Now, here's where things get really unsettling. Diamond warns of a looming crack in the bond market, you and me. Well, it means the normally steady market for US Treasury bonds, which is the bedrock of global finance, could suddenly erupt in volatility. Diamond cites the government's overspending and years of easy money printing as the reasons that the bond market is on a knife edge. If investors lose confidence and start dumping US bonds, interest rates could skyrocket and prices could plummet. Now, Diamond doesn't know exactly when it will hit. It could be 6 months or 6 years away, he says. He's adamant that if something snaps, it won't be small. And we got a taste of this recently where predictable tariff announcements and spending sprees spooked investors, treasury yields shot up, and the markets panicked. Now, even more, investors are now buying insurance US default like never before. The cost to insure US government credit default swaps jumped to about 50, and again, Italy is and nearly as high as Greece's. That's right. Wall Street is treating US bonds as if they're almost as risky as debt from countries it's that serious. Now, if you're finding these insights eye-opening and valuable, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support will help this channel keep you ahead of the game with critical info. Now back to Dimon's warning, because there's more. So, what happens if this crack in the bond market appears? Well, in Dimon's words, the market could panic when it happens. A bond market meltdown would ripple through everything: mortgage rates, student loans, credit cards, business financing, you name it. The irony? Well, Dimon noted that in such chaos, big banks like his might actually profit from the volatility, but that's cold comfort for the rest of us. So, for everyday Americans, a bond crisis could mean sky high borrowing costs, a stock market crash, and a potential credit crunch. Now, this is why Diamond is effectively begging policymakers to get right in front of this now. Stop overspending, restore fiscal sanity, and shore up confidence before we reach a point of no return. Now, Diamond's warning isn't just about debt, it's also about policy blunders that jolt the markets, like the recent roller coaster on trade tariffs. He watched Trump unveil sweeping new tariffs this year, only to partially backtrack after the bond market went into freefall. Now, tariffs can be a useful tool, but Diamond cautions that the way they're being used lately is too erratic and reactionary. 1 minute, huge import taxes are slapped on key goods. The next minute, there's a sudden 90-day pause because markets freaked out. This whipsaw approach has destabilized the US China economic relationship. It's injected uncertainty into global supply chains, and as we saw, it spooked the bond market, and investors hate surprise risks. So Diamond isn't necessarily against tariffs in principle. He's a patriot and he understands getting tough on trade issues, but he thinks we need a coherent strategy, not some off the cuff moves. Now, the recent Liberation Day tariff saga is a prime example. Trump's big tariff announcement in April sent Treasury yields jumping and stocks tumbling, prompting a quick reversal. It's kind of like slamming the gas and the brakes on the economy at the very same time. Diamond's take? Well, such unpredictability is bad for business and our financial stability. He'd rather see thoughtful economic diplomacy, target the real issues with China, but don't keep markets guessing with every tweet or soundbite. So the takeaway here is that policy missteps can ignite or quench financial fires. And right now, Diamond sees a few too many arsonists running around Washington fanning those flames. So, in a surprising twist, Jamie Dimon, a bona fide Wall Street titan, is siding against one of Wall Street's favorite tax breaks. He says, we absolutely should be taxing carried interest, calling out the notorious loopholes that let private equity and hedge fund managers pay lower taxes on much of their income. Now, this is a big deal. Carried interest is basically a share of investment profits that fund managers get, and under current law, it's taxed at a low capital gains rate instead of normal income. So for years, billionaires have paid lower tax rates than their secretaries thanks to this little trick. Dimon is now joining the chorus, even aligning with Trump's stance that it's time to close that particular loophole. Why? Because it's arguably unfair and it's money the government sorely needs. Dimon even has an idea for the extra revenue. Use it to help regular Americans like you and I. He suggested using the funds from taxing carried interest to expand tax credits for working families, basically putting that Wall Street money into the pockets of those who truly need it. In fact, he floated doubling the income tax credit, even for people without kids, to boost take home pay and support communities. Now, hearing a top banker advocate a tax hike on fellow financiers, it's almost unheard of. It's a game recognizes game moment, acknowledging that the system has been tilted too long towards the ultra rich. Diamond's broader point is that sensible fiscal reforms, whether it's fixing the tax code, smarter regulations, or even investing in education, could strengthen the economy's foundation. Now, it all ties back to tackling that enemy within. He's effectively saying, let's get our own policies in order, make them fair and logical, so we're financially strong from the ground up. And that means tough love for even his own industry when it's necessary. Now, to cap it off, Diamond's overarching warning is about complacency. For the past decade or more, we've glided along on low rates, high debt, and the assumption that the US economy can't really falter. And Diamond thinks that mindset is a huge mistake. In fact, last year he cautioned that this may be the most dangerous time the world has seen in decades, and he stands by that. Geopolitical strife, soaring debt, and domestic dysfunction all at once, well, it's a volatile mix. So he'd rather be overprepared and wrong than complacent and blindsided. Now remember, this is a man who steered JPMorgan through the 2008 crisis and other storms. He famously predicted a coming economic hurricane in 2022. It didn't fully hit then, but that hurricane may just have been delayed, not cancelled. Diamond's credibility comes from seeing risks ahead of the crowd. And right now, he's effectively shouting to anyone who'll listen, take this seriously. Our leaders, our businesses, and we as individuals must not assume everything will just work itself out. Now, the brink of collapse is not inevitable, but without action, we edge closer to it every single day. Diamond's tough love message isn't about causing panic, it's a call to snap out of our false sense of security, fix the roof while the sun is shining, as the saying goes, because clouds are quickly forming on the horizon. In closing, the warning from Jamie Dimon is stark and unapologetic. It's stark. America, clean up your act or face economic reckoning. Mismanagement, runaway debt, bond market cracks, policy misfires. These are all problems of our own making, which means we have the power to solve them. But the question is, will we? Well, let's not wait until it's too late. And if this message resonated with you, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more insights to keep you informed and financially empowered. Remember, the best way to predict your financial future is to take action in the present. So until next time, stay vigilant, stay prosperous. Thanks for warning, and I'll see you on the next one.